All right, everybody, what's up? Welcome into the Athletics Best on the Board here on Monday, December 13th. We've got a jam-packed 20 or so minutes coming your way. We're talking Week 15 early lines, Monday Night Football best bets, and Monday's NBA slate. We start off with football. Michael Beller and Andrew DeWitt here to take you through, as I said, Week 15 early lines and a quick look at Monday Night Football as well. DeWitt, how'd the weekend treat you, my friend?
Really good. I mean, big weekend for just the favorites, just chalk across the board. I mean, just if you love betting favorites, you had a great weekend. I had a good pick on the Army Navy under. Had a lot of that, so that was good. Had the Bucks yesterday. That was a miracle cover. I shouldn't have won that game. So we'll just throw that one out there. But
it went from super comfortable to, oh man, what's happening, to miracle cover. It was a whole roller coaster of emotion, that one.
Yeah, that was a crazy game. I mean, I was actually kind of glad to see the Bills kind of fight back because they kind of looked lifeless for a while. Like the last 3 or 4 weeks, like what's going on? Like eliminating the Monday Night Football game because that was just a freak game. But I mean, I was happy to see the Bills fight back because they kind of needed that for a team perspective, I think.
Yeah, totally with you there. It was fun, definitely. And as someone who was on over 52.5 in that game, I was very happy to see them come back and make that happen as well. It was a fun weekend. And unless you're our friends over at BetMGM, who presents this show here on The Athletic, or really any sportsbook operator, it was not a good week for the books with all these favorites winning and covering. I mean, covers were coming through nicely. If you wanted to do pretty much any money line favorite parlay you could throw together, that came through as a winner this weekend. It was definitely a good weekend for the betting public, and we certainly hope that continues going forward. Let's get into these Week 15 early lines, DeWitt. Let's remember that in addition to the Thursday night game, we have 2 Saturday night games this week as well. Browns, Raiders, and Colts, Patriots getting together on Saturday here in Week 15. You're going to get us started right away. Nice, bright and early. The Thursday night game between the Chiefs and the Chargers should be a fun one. This one in LA. Chargers are 3.5-point dogs at home against the Chiefs. Maybe no Austin Eckler, although things are sounding decent for him early in the week. What do you like in this one, DeWitt?
This is just a bet on the Chiefs kind of finding their groove. In the first matchup, they really struggled against the Chargers' 2 deep safeties. I think Los Angeles has probably rolled that out again, but I think Patrick Mahomes and the offense has kind of learned to settle into what teams are giving them. Teams are doing a really good job of taking Travis Kelce away, but yesterday against the Raiders, unfortunately for the Raiders, they decided to stomp on the Chiefs midfield logo, and then they probably got stomped themselves. But I think the other side of the ball is like the Chiefs defense has just been awesome since they've all gotten healthy. Chris Jones getting pressure. I mean, it's just been really good. I think 3 straight weeks, they've only given up 9 points to teams. And that's impressive for any team, regardless of the competition or who you are. And I think, the Chiefs early in the season when they were turning the ball over, it was a lot of, hitting Tyreek Hill in the hands, hitting Travis Kelce in the hands, hitting Byron Pringle in the hands, and the ball would pop up and it would be picked off. And they're kind of just shooting themselves. And ever since the second half of the Washington game, they've kind of righted themselves in terms of the turnovers. And I think that's going to be a big thing. L'Jarius Sneed should be back for the Chiefs. He missed last Sunday's game. His brother died, unfortunately, over the weekend, so he missed the game. But I think he'll be a big factor in shutting down the Chargers wide receivers. Plus, we don't know who's going to be back for the Chargers because they have some COVID issues going on in their team. So I just like the Chiefs at -3.5. This is a huge game for the Chiefs. They have to win this game. Otherwise, they're going to lose the tiebreaker to the Chargers for the AFC West. So I think it's just it's probably the most important game for the Chiefs going forward for the rest of their season because they've kind of already lost their tiebreakers to the Ravens, the Titans, and the Bills already this season.
Yeah, you mentioned they've got this tiebreaker with the Chiefs or with the Chargers. The Chargers would have a sweep over the Chiefs if they win this game. So then if it came down to these 2 teams being tied, it would be the Chargers as AFC West champs. And then with the Patriots looking at that very tough game against the Colts on Saturday night, more on that in just a second. This could be a game that puts the Chiefs back in first place in the AFC and back in line for the lone bye on the AFC side of the playoff bracket. So definitely a huge, huge game for the Chiefs. You mentioned the 3 straight games with 9 points allowed. You have to go all the way back to the World Series still being played before you find a time that the Chiefs gave up more than 17 points. Over their last 6 games, they've surrendered 17, 7, 14, 9, 9, 9. This has been an incredibly impressive showing from the Chiefs defense over their last 6 games. And so I think that, this is a stay away for me personally with these two teams getting together. But I think your logic certainly is well placed in what we've seen from the Chiefs defensively, and maybe, just maybe, what we saw from them offensively back in this past week against the Raiders. I will say, though, DeWitt, the 2 good offensive performances they've had in that time, both of those came against the Raiders. So it would be nice to see them get things going against a non-Raiders defense. Perhaps that happens for them on Thursday night against the Chargers. For my first pick, let's go all the way ahead to Sunday and find Bengals and Broncos, where the Bengals are 1.5-point underdogs in Cincinnati. I like the Bengals in this game, DeWitt. This feels like a tiny bit of an overreaction to what we saw from both of these teams in Week 14. The Broncos do exactly what they should do, take care of business, dominate the Lions from start to finish. You can't say, oh, yeah, it was only the Lions. You can't fault them. That's who's on their schedule. But it was only the Lions. So let's not overreact to that one too much. Huge games out of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams in that one. The Bengals, meanwhile, really impressive second half out of this team. They're down 20-6 in the second half against the 49ers. They could have easily folded and gone away. They scored 14 straight points and they forced overtime. And I would have loved to have seen what that game looks like without the late first half muffed punt, then the relatively weak taunting call that led to a 49ers touchdown. I think that game looks a whole lot different if just one of those two things goes different. If you don't muff the punt, we're talking about the Bengals, taking over at about their own 40 with a minute and a half left in the first half, down 10-6 at that point. And they're going the other way with it and maybe taking a lead, maybe at least getting the field goal. If you take away the taunting penalty, then they just give up a field goal almost certainly. That was a 4th down before the taunting penalty. So you're talking about giving up a field goal at worst and maybe also still having a little bit of time to get into field goal range yourself. That game really swung on those couple of plays right at the end of the first half. And then you still saw the Bengals fight their way back against a good quality San Francisco opponent and force overtime. So it's a loss for the Bengals. It obviously goes down as a loss. It goes down as a loss for those of us like myself who bet on the Bengals +2 in that game. But it was still a relatively impressive performance from the Bengals, especially being down where they were to rally back and force overtime in that one. I think they're just a better team than the Broncos. And as you and I have talked about many times on this show, home field has really just evaporated in the NFL this season. So I don't really put too much stock into that. Give me the better team getting 1.5. That's what I've got in this one.
Yeah, and the Broncos, they've made their feasted on beating the really bad teams this season. The Giants, they beat the Jaguars, they beat the Lions. It's like, when are the Broncos going to have that marquee victory? And I don't think they've had it yet. And I don't think they're going to get it against the Bengals either. There's one game I looked at too when we were talking about our picks earlier today that kind of stood out. And when I was kind of typing up the opening lines last night on BetMGM, it kind of was like a head scratcher for me. Why are the Bengals, underdogs on the road? It should be probably closer to a pick 'em probably. But I really do like the Bengals in this spot because now they're kind of fighting for their AFC North lives too, because, Ravens, Lamar Jackson might miss a couple of weeks. It looks like it was a big, severe ankle injury for him if he didn't even try and come back. So I think there's a big opportunity for the Bengals, and I think that team realizes it. Although Zach Taylor kind of needs to be a little more risky with his decision-making and probably maybe cost his team the game yesterday. So,
ooh, man, there were some bad coaching decisions in Week 14. This was not a banner week for coaches making what felt like relatively easy decisions. Hello, Matt Nagy punting on 4th and inches down by 11 points in the 4th quarter. But that's never a different topic for a different show. Let's get on to our second picks here. You're going to Saturday night, Colts and Patriots, a game we referenced a little earlier. Colts 2-point favorites in this game at home against the Patriots. I'll be honest with it. When I was looking for my picks on this show, I just sort of scanned right past the Saturday games. I would have been on this one too had I seen it because I love the Colts -2 in this spot.
Yeah, I love the Colts' run defense, particularly against the Patriots. We know what the Patriots are going to try and do. They're going to try and run the ball, control the clock, not give the Colts offense any opportunity to score. Just one of those Bill Belichick games, here's how we're going to win. They're completely bought in on that. I mean, I think the Colts defense and their run defense is good enough to force Mac Jones into some 3rd and long situations where he's going to be forced to throw the ball. And he's going to be forced to look at the tight ends and be forced to say, hey, where can I make some plays? Like Jacoby Myers, he can be open, stuff like that. It's like no team has really forced the Patriots in this win streak to force Mac Jones to win the game. And that's going to be the key, is that I think the Colts will be able to force Mac Jones into some mistakes. And I think that's how the Colts will win the game. Forcing an interception late in the, in the 3rd quarter, makes the difference up or something like that. I just really see the Patriots. I think the Colts offense is good enough to run the ball against the Patriots defense too. And I think that's the key differentiator here is that the Colts offense and the running game will be better than the Patriots run game, and then forcing the Patriots offense and specifically Mac Jones to try and show that he can win a game with his arm, which I'm not sure he can do right now.
I think the Colts can just pretty simply be better at the Patriots game than the Patriots are in this one. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The Colts, like, that's the way the Patriots want to play, as you said, and it's a way that has had a lot of success for them, right? We're talking about a team that has won 7 straight games now to get to 9-4 in the top overall spot in the AFC, and they've done it largely by running the ball effectively, playing really good defense, and picking their spots with Mac Jones. The Colts can do that just as well, if not better. I mean, is Carson Wentz better than Mac Jones? Is Jonathan Taylor better than what the New England Patriots backs have to offer? Maybe the Patriots defense is a little bit better, but I just think the Colts can do what the Patriots want to do better than what the Patriots want to do. And unlike any other team that they've played in this winning streak, with the possible exception of the Cleveland Browns, the Colts are perfectly happy playing a game like that also. That's been untrue of every other team that the Patriots have played on this 7-game winning streak. So I'm with you. Think this is a fun game. Think this is a close game, but think it's one that the Colts do end up covering by more than 2 points. I'm also looking at a 2-point spread for my second pick, DeWitt. Steelers and Titans. Steelers getting 2 at home. I am not a Steelers guy. I bet on them before the season to finish in last place in the AFC North. I am still holding that ticket. I am still holding that ticket confidently with what we see in that division right now. But why should the Tennessee Titans be favored on the road against anybody, maybe other than a team like the Jaguars or a team like the Jets? Because they have looked atrocious offensively since losing Derrick Henry, and then even worse since losing A.J. Brown. Like, we're all focused on the Jaguars and what a mess that team is, and Urban Meyer making a clown out of himself yet again in that game against the Titans. But the Titans didn't look good. I mean, that was a bad offensive performance top to bottom, really. They didn't do much of anything. Their defense just controlled an offense and a team that basically has quit and basically is ready just to pack it in, get that coach out of there, and start fresh in 2022. But go and look at what they put. I mean, go watch parts of the game. Go look at the stats in that game. This offense looked bad once again, and they still don't really have an offensive identity. Their offensive identity right now, DeWitt, is let's just grind our way through the end of the regular season, stay a couple of games ahead of the Colts, win the division, and then get Derek and AJ back for the playoffs. That's their offensive identity, and that is not a team that should be favored by 2 on the road against a Pittsburgh team that has shown us some signs of life over the last month with that game against the Chargers, with that comeback against the Vikings. Like, this is a team that has some things going for it right now, and I just don't see what the Titans have done to be 2-point road favorites against any team with some life like Pittsburgh.
I mean, we'll give, like you said, the Jaguars have quit. I'll say this about the Steelers. Their offense isn't great. Big Ben isn't great. But that team fights. They could have easily checked out of that Thursday night football game. Easily.
Yeah.
Like, that game it was over. And you're like, oh, I clicked. I went, see ya. I'll catch the highlights if they come back. But, I mean, the Steelers fight. And I think that's a good point, is that this team's going to continue to fight. And the Titans offense isn't great. So I think there's good value. Should probably be closer to a pick 'em, or, you know, maybe it's probably a pick 'em, honestly. Like, if you were playing on a neutral field, you know, it should be pick 'em in this game. Like, I don't see why the Titans are 2-point favorites against the Steelers. Just my opinion. And I mean, we'll see how it plays out, obviously, but I really do like the Steelers pick here.
One more topic here, DeWitt. Let's talk Monday Night Football. Should be a really fun game. Cardinals and Rams getting together tonight to close out Week 14. We've got the Cardinals as small favorites in this one, 2.5-point favorites, a total of 51. Give us your one favorite play for Monday Night Football tonight.
Total dart throw, but these first TD picks are a lot of fun. So I'll go Zach Ertz at 16-1 to get the first touchdown. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of points. Obviously, it's going to be a coin toss, maybe who gets the ball first or who gets 2 of the first 3 possessions, who gets the touchdown. But I really do like Zach Ertz, because I think the Rams defensive line is going to try and control Kyler Murray and how much he can run, specifically like inside the 15, 10-yard line, where he loves to do those end arounds and get into the end zone so easily. So I really think he's have to look to Ertz inside the red zone to get the first touchdown. So that's why I like Zach Ertz at 16-1 to get the first touchdown.
Yeah, I'll probably tickle a little bit of Kyler Murray first touchdown. Love those running quarterbacks for first touchdown bets, and that's probably something I'll do a little bit of tonight. But you said it. This is probably going to be a high-scoring game. I know these two teams have a lot of dogs on defense, a lot of guys who can really get after it and playmakers, and I think that there could be some big defensive plays in this game. But you look at what these two teams both have to offer on the offensive side of the ball, and I find it hard to believe that it's going to be any sort of shutdown thing in this game. So over 51 is my favorite play for this game. I think it's a fun game. And as I've mentioned multiple times on this show, Kyler Murray is an over machine with what he does, with how quickly Arizona scores and what that offers back to the offense on the other side. Just go look back at the history that Kyler Murray has put together, the totals that games start off at with him involved, and then how often those games go over. The guy is the most reliable over player in the NFL right now. And so I like this one to get over the 51 that we've got on it at BetMGM. That's going to wrap up the NFL segment, the NFL portion of this episode of Best on the Board. DeWitt, good luck tonight, man. Thanks for being with us.
All right, have a good one.
All right, NBA, coming up soon. First, though, a message from our friends at BetMGM. Right now, bet $10, win 200, plus get a free year-long subscription to The Athletic at betmgm.com/TA-best. Act now to take advantage of this offer from the king of sportsbooks. Bet 10, win 200, plus a free year-long subscription to The Athletic at betmgm.com/TA-best. This is a new customer offer. Terms and conditions apply. All right, NBA time and Christmas time. I love it. I love the background, Tass. Looking good there. Tass Melas from No Dunks joining us on Best on the Board, and I love the festive feeling, man. It looks great.
'Tis the season, Michael.
Yes.
Why not just jump head? I mean, we have had our Christmas tree up at our house since mid-November, I got to be honest.
Yeah, the pre-Thanksgiving Christmas tree action.
Pre-Thanksgiving. My wife, Danielle, always asking me, get it up. Let's get it up. Let's get it up. But I have to put it off until like mid-November. That was a win for me this year.
That is great. We got ours up more standard Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember which day, but that weekend after Thanksgiving. And so, so it's up out there somewhere. I've got, all this other dorky stuff behind me, but 'tis the season indeed for all this festiveness, and 'tis the season to be gambling on some NBA. We've got 3 picks for you here to wrap up this episode of Best on the Board. Tass, both of us have had some success in recent weeks going with props on big time, big name stud players. And that's where we're going to start off our NBA pick segment. Joel Embiid, the guy who is in your crosshairs. What do you got for us on Joel?
Pick good players to have good games, Michael. I think that's what we
good
said.
Strategy.
Yeah, it is a great strategy. And I think Joel Embiid is kind of due. I know that sounds like a dumb thing to say, but I like him against Steven Adams tonight and a very bad Memphis Grizzlies defense, because Steven Adams is going to guard him one-on-one. That's going to happen. And I like when that happens for Joel Embiid, because he doesn't have to deal with double teams. That's when his numbers tend to drop off. He just came off a game where he had to play the Golden State Warriors, an incredible defense. He's had 19 and 26 respectively in his last 2 games. But in his 8 games since he's returned from health and safety protocols, he's had a couple 40-point games and a 30-point game. So I think he breaks through that 25.5-point mark that the prop bettors have assigned for him. And I think this is kind of serious season for Joel Embiid. After the health and safety protocols, he came back. He tried to right the ship with the Philadelphia 76ers here after a slow start for him specifically. He was runner-up in MVP voting last year, and I just don't think he's he hasn't played to his capabilities for a lot of the season. But since coming back from that health and safety protocols, again, some monstrous lines, and against Steven Adams and a lot of ISO coverage tonight, I think he'll get back up over that 25.5.
Hey, you like that logic for sure with the matchup with Steven Adams. It's just going up against a bad overmatched team in Memphis. It definitely feels like a good spot for Embiid. And you talked about the recent games going up against Golden State, for example. I actually had your voice ringing in my ear. I was looking at some Malcolm Brogdon props for tonight, because he's been a guy who's been just sort of doing his Malcolm Brogdon thing, right? Mm-hmm. Game in, game out. But that Golden State defense, definitely a scary one to go up against, regardless of who the player that we're talking about is. So I'm going back to old reliable for my one play here today. Let's get to Trae Young. Over 37.5 points plus assists. This is a number that he has blown past in many recent games. Trae Young on a little bit of a heater. Let's take you back over the last, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks or so. 31-10, 29-11, 25-15, 25-10. The one time he came up short of it by literally one. 33-10, 33-7, 31-10, 31-11, 30-6. The guy is a machine right now. And this game that Atlanta's got tonight against Houston, 226.5. The total on this game, by far the highest total on the board for any NBA game on Monday's 9-game slate. There should be points in this one, and I love that environment. An overmatched Houston team, Trae Young on a heater, a game where we're expecting a lot of points. I think Trae gets it going. I guess if I had one concern, Tass, it would be the fact that Atlanta's favored by 9.5. Maybe they've got this game well in hand early in the fourth quarter, and they get Trae a little bit of rest. But chances are, if they do have it that well in hand, he's done a lot of the work to get it there. So give me the over on Trae Young's points plus assists of 37.5.
Yeah, I think a couple points are in your favor. The Hawks and the fact that they're a favorite 9.5 or 10 points. I don't think they actually should be a 9.5 or 10-point favorite. I know the Rockets record would lead you to believe that the Hawks should be a big favorite because they're 8-18, but the Rockets have been playing a lot better recently, gone on a huge win streak themselves. So I think this will be a fairly close game, even though their record would lead you to believe that they should be an easy matchup for the Hawks. So I think Trae Young will play into the fourth quarter. And the fact that Trae Young gets to go up against a Rockets defense that is just not the Brooklyn Nets defense that he just played in Atlanta, where they were switching everything and were able to overcome the Hawks late in that game. I think the Hawks they're a hungry team, and I think they want to bounce back after that Brooklyn Nets loss. And I think Trae Young can do that against a really young Rockets team. The Rockets defense is not the Nets defense. I know the Nets are not really known for the defensive side of the ball, but they've had an incredible start to the season. They were switching everything against Atlanta, and that kind of slowed down Trae Young. But against this Rockets team, he'll be fine.
All right, dude, let's get to one last pick, one last play for this episode of Best on the Board. We're going to get out of prop land and go just to a traditional straight up against the spread bet. Raptors, 4.5-point favorites at home tonight against the Sacramento Kings. Give us your reasoning for backing the home favorite, Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, I'm going north of the border here. I wanted to go with a couple props, Michael, but after I saw this line, I could not shy away from taking Toronto against Sacramento. Only 4.5 points. The Kings were absolutely destroyed on Saturday night. The Cleveland Cavaliers had an 81-point first half against the Kings. I wondered if Sacramento was going to come out of the locker room and even play the third and fourth quarter. Now, they fought back. It was a quote-unquote respectable loss at the end of that game, but this is their third game of a 3-game trip. The Kings are not a good basketball team. I don't expect them to get better as this trip goes on. Now, the line at only 4.5 would lead you to believe these teams are sort of evenly matched, and the Raps do not have a good record this season. They're 12-14. Only 2 win streaks this year, but one of them was last week, and they're coming off a good win against the Knicks. And I expect them to have their third win streak after tonight because I think their length will bother De'Aaron Fox and discourage him from coming inside. They beat Sacramento with that length by 19 earlier this season. And the Raps are just playing far better ball in the last week and a half or so than their record would lead you to believe, while the Kings, again, shellacked, annihilated, obliterated by the Cavs on Saturday night. Teams that go on long road trips here through the holiday season, they want to get home to see their own Christmas trees. I think they just want to get home, Michael. I think this is going to be a blowout in Toronto. I think Toronto should take care of Sacramento.
This was actually a game that I was looking at as well, not for the side or the total, but actually for a prop. I love that we've been seeing a little bit more of Chris Boucher for Toronto with the injuries that they've had in their front line. So I'm going to throw 3 props at you. Tell me which one you like best. We got either his points prop is sitting at 13.5. It's -115. His rebounds prop, 7.5, -120. And then his points plus rebounds is 21.5. And you get that down at -110. If you were going to play the over for one of those, again, 13.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, or 21.5 combined. Which one do you like best?
Wow, you throw all those 3. I mean, they're all sort of in the same category to me. Does Boucher play enough minutes? That's the question that overhangs all of them. 13.5. It seems like I'm staying away, Michael. I'm staying away. If there's he is a scorer, so I would pick. If I had to pick one, I'd pick the point total, but I'm scared. What are his point totals his last several games?
I mean, yeah, he had 14 and 8 right their last game. I know that for sure. I'm pretty sure that's right up.
Don't do it, Michael. Don't do it.
Let's look it up. Let's look it up really quick before we, because the injuries are still there, right, in the front line.
Yes,
So
they are. But Nick Nurse has been hesitant to throw him out there.
So let's see. 14 and 8 in that game against the Knicks that you referenced. He had 11 and 7 against OKC the game before that. 14 and 6 against Washington the game before that. And that's really the first time that Washington game played 18 minutes. That's the first time in about 3 weeks that he's played anything above 10, 11 minutes.
Okay, well, I would play the over hesitantly, obviously, but either one, the points and the rebounds. I'm not a big solo rebound betting guy.
Yeah, too many things can go wrong, especially when we're talking about potentially being capped at like 20 or 21 minutes in this game tonight. But just someone who's certainly on my radar with the additional minutes that he's been getting over these last couple of games for the Raptors. That's going to do it. That's going to wrap things up here for this episode of Best on the Board. For Tass Melas, Andrew DeWitt, I am Michael Beller. Thanks so much for listening to us. Thanks for joining us on YouTube, those of you who did. As always, we wish you good luck tonight and happy betting. We'll talk to you soon.